If you haven't watched my other videos, here's a quick synopsis of what's going on. A while back, I purchased a new angle kit for my car from Just Engineering. I've kind of been chasing them for for a while because they posted a picture of this angle kit a long time ago, earlier this year. So I finally got my hands on it. I've done a comparison video or a technical breakdown to discuss it, talk about all the cool points, and then the other day I brought the drift car home. I was actually gonna try and pull it in the garage, but I still haven't gotten rid of this car. So I'm gonna install the angle kit right here in the driveway. And this video is installing the Just Engineering AE86 Super Angle Kit. First things first, gotta pull off the old suspension angle kit stuff. Probably don't need to show you step by step, but gotta pull off the tension rod, sway bar, control arms, tie rod ends, all that jazz. So yeah, let's get started. I'm just gonna flash ahead to all that stuff off. Old stuff is now out of the car, but I overlaid this on top so you could kind of get an idea of the clearance differences. So the sway bar isn't really a clearance issue, it's the tension rod. So you can see that that's a pretty big extra amount of clearance there. That's lined up-ish, so then you can also see how wide that is. That is super, super wide. So now we're gonna put the control arms in the car. I still gotta swap the outer tie rod ends, and then after that what we have to do is we have to take these guys on the strut towers. We got to clearance out a little bit here to fix to fix camber, so that way we don't have like 10 degrees of camber. So I'm gonna do that one, I don't know, probably last. I'm gonna get the control arms stuff put in, and then we'll clearance this out, and then put everything in the car. So I also just got these back from powder coating because I have these Cusco style ones on, and that's not gonna work for this angle kit. I need the stock style one. So I went and I had these powder coating by C-Ray, the local guy here, and it's super cool. Like, I didn't realize these were stamped left and right, as well as we got the TEQ stamping right there too. So that's pretty neat. He cleaned these up. I mean, these look like as good as they can, look pretty much brand new. So yeah, I'm excited. Tension rod brackets are mounted. I actually had to, because of how I have my front mount here, I changed it. I actually had to grind a little bit off of this. So fresh powder coating, I had to grind a little bit off. So hopefully that doesn't run into any strength issues. I might have to weld a piece on there later, not sure. But now I think we can mock up the control arms and get those set in with the knuckles. And then it's just a matter of cutting the top. This is going pretty quick. Getting ready to toss the control arms on. Now, this, when you're starting out, you want to have the heim joint adjusted all the way in, and you want the small spacers on this side. You're gonna start with like the lowest amount of caster when you put it on, and then when you go get it aligned, you can adjust it to your specs. But the biggest thing is clearance. So you're gonna have this adjusted all the way in, have caster reduced as far as possible, and then you'll adjust this based on your pretty much your clearance with the car and suspension bits and all that stuff with your wheel and tire. Now, you're probably looking at this going, that's gross, Devin. I'm running Megan coilovers, and they use a different spacing for this alignment ring on the bottom of the strut. So I had to grind this down. I did the best I could by hand. If you're using OEM spindles, you won't have to do that. And I shot Just Engineering a message so they're aware of it, and they're gonna take a look into it, and they might offer a different like knuckle machining option for aftermarket spindles. But that's the big thing. So now we're gonna get this tossed in the car, kind of loosely mocked up, and then we have to figure out our tie rod situation. I've been running rack spacers with mine, and these outer tie rod ends are way longer, so I won't need the rack spacers. You don't need the extra spacers. Like, I've got big rack spacers. It'll probably be just fine with some of the small ones, the small slip-on ones. But yeah, I'm gonna do that, swap, you know, pull the inner tie rod ends off, pull the spacers off, put them back on, and put the new outer tie rod ends on, and be good to go. One more thing. This is how you want the ball joint to be set up, the big spacer in between the knuckle and the control arm, the small spacer on the bottom. You can see we've got big spacer, big misalignment spacer, small misalignment spacer, small spacer. So that pushes the control arm as far back as possible. So you got the lowest amount of caster. I just have everything just hand tight right now, right? So I got that kind of hand tight, got this kind of hand tight. So that way I can get everything loosely assembled. And then once I get everything kind of together, then I can tighten everything up, because the tolerances here are pretty tight, especially like the knuckle to the shock or strut, whatever, that's always really tight. So this way you can kind of figure out where everything's at and then adjust and tighten everything from there. Just to give you an idea of how much angle is possible with this kit, that is with the ball, or with the angle adjuster here, the bump stop, as far out as possible. That's that's a ridiculous amount of steering angle. Okay, tie rod ends. What you're gonna start with is 0 Ackerman. So these are the ones that have 0 notches on it. The hole is perfectly in the middle, right? So you're gonna put your 0 Ackerman spacer on top and bottom of your knuckle. Now, another thing real quick with these tie rod ends is you'll notice one side has a steel lip on the top and the other side has a C-clip. C-clip goes in the bottom, so they go like this, right? Okay. When you're putting this in, right, this is your tie rod end bolt. Bolt from the bottom. Especially if you have small wheels, this is gonna give you the most clearance. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna stack. You've got 3 washers, okay? You're gonna stack 3 washers. That's gonna give you the most roll center, or the most roll center adjustment, I think. You can do that. You're going to get your 0 Ackerman adjustment for that. Plop it up through and tighten it down. Now make sure these are lined up. Now they are like a water jet or a laser cut, so they have a little notch on each side that it's not always gonna slip perfectly up into the knuckle, so just be aware of that if you're hitting, you know, resistance, or you can't get this to sit in the knuckle. It's just that little bit. You can hit a little bit of sandpaper or something if you want to smooth it out, but yeah. Now, you can't even tighten this down all the way because of the aggressive angle that it's at, and that's because I haven't done the strut mount yet. So that's next. I gotta do the strut mount. I'm gonna get the other side loosely assembled like this, and then I'm gonna start getting the strut mounts all squared away. This just kind of shows you how aggressive this angle kit is. This is my already extended Megan outer tie rod ends. I extended them, I think, about an inch or 2, inch and a half. And then this, so much longer. That's why I had to remove my my steering rack spacers. So I've got those all removed. You know, there's one of them, that's from AJPS. And then battle version and battle version. Well, I think they're battle version knockoffs because I bought them off of eBay. Because that's the only place I could find them. So, yeah. Okay, now I've got everything bolted up underneath, or at least loosely assembled. A lot of the hardware is still loose because we want to get the top squared away first, and then we'll go back through, tighten everything up, and start adjusting everything. So, up top, before we start pulling stuff off, I recommend loosening your coilover these bolts here, 1, 2, 3, 4, or however many you got. Loosen those. Then we're going to take off all 3 of these bolts or nuts and do it on both sides. Let the suspension droop down, and then we're going to mark out to cut everything for the new upper mounts. All right, so now we're at the point of cutting for clearance. So what I'm going to do is I took the upper strut mount from the other side and I brought it over here. I'm going to flip it upside down. We've already got the studs in it here, and we just drop the studs in the holes, and there we can see where we're going to cut. But I don't just want to mark on the car, so I've got some painter's tape. I'm going to lay that down first, and then I'm going to trace around it, and then we'll start cutting. All right, got this side masked off. Pop this guy in here. Sweet, should be really easy to trace. Now I'm gonna go over and just do it on the other side real quick. I've got it traced out a couple of different ways here. I've got the outline done, but then I also have a little bit more. You see, I've got these other cross lines here, because I'm gonna start and just cut to about here, right? And then from there kind of work my way out. That way I don't overdo it, because although I can add metal back, it's easier to not have to. That took entirely too long. I only got one side done. So it's dark. I'm gonna finish the other side, but I'll show you what it should look like. When you're done, it'll look something like that. I still have a little bit of cleaning up to do, but you know, that fits in there just right. And I should be able to slide it all the way out. I could probably grind a little bit more out for more clearance, but yeah. There we go. All right, so I worked late the night last night, finished getting things bolted up. So I'm gonna show you what the angle kit looks like now that it's mostly done. All right, first things first, I'm gonna show you this in the daylight. So I've got this notched out. It's not perfect, but it doesn't go as far as I thought it would. So that's about as far as it goes. The cool thing is, I love how you can look down and see the arm down there and everything. That's pretty neat. But yeah, this is what your strut tires will look like-ish. If you were smart, you would also have some touch-up paint to toss on there. I don't have touch-up paint yet. I still got to go get some. And let's look at the other side here. This is how the other side turned out. Once again, still have a little bit more to notch out, but yeah, and my sander skipped a little bit there. Now, inside of the wheel well, you'll notice the brake line is not in the factory position. That's something that you're going to have to do, okay? I think the factory brake line position is here. Now, before the angle kit, I was already rubbing at this point, right? So, that is something you're going to have to address. You have to move the brake line, otherwise you'll hit it. So, I put mine right here, in line with the strut. That way, it's got the most clearance for the wheel. I've actually already rubbed on it a bit, so I might need new brake lines. But yeah, that gives you an idea of where it ends up, and that's just because of the way the brake line is designed. I'll show you here on the other side what the brake line looks like coming off the caliper. See, you've got this, you can see it's pretty in line with the strut. When it's there, it's got clearance. This, because it comes up, sometimes you can contact the tire or wheel here when you're turning the other direction. So I'm going to zip tie mine to the strut right there, so that way it stays in place. Because this thing on my coilovers, it doesn't really stay very well. So yeah. Now, all right, we're on day 3 of the Just Engineering AE86 Super Angle Kit install. So I've got everything on, everything tightened up, and what I did was I started by setting toe to 0, and then once you've got toe zeroed, then you can start adjusting things for your clearances with, say, like your wheel and tire to the frame rail, and your wheel and tire to the tie rod end. And once you get that kind of set and figured out, then you can take it in, go get it aligned, figure out what alignment specs you're going to run. You know, the amount of toe that you run, as well as caster and camber, is really going to depend on your personal preference and your clearance. So right now, I have it up in the air, so that way I can actually get it to full lock without like crazy steering effort, because it's almost impossible to get it to full lock on the ground. Because of manual rack stuff. But you know, I cleaned up in here for y'all, so I wiped off about 35 years of grime. It looks a lot better, but obviously I didn't do a perfect job. But okay, you can see that is, I mean, that's a ton of steering angle. Like, that's just ridiculous. And that is on the angle limiter here. Both wheels, left and right side clear, they roll, no problems. I really wanted to have enough clearance to run no bump stops. I wanted to use all of the angle. But then you start running into issues with over-centering and so on, and then you've got a super wide stance. But here I pulled out the angle limiters, the bump stops here, all the way. I'm going to show you, oh, excuse me, I'm going to show you my problem. So I have the control arm adjusted all the way in. Same thing with the shock up top, or the strut up top. Everything is as far in as possible, and my tire is grabbing in here on the frame rail, and the wheel and tire is pretty much grabbing on the tie rod end there. So if I'm going to run with no angle limiters and get all of the steering angle, I'm gonna have to do two things. That's gonna have to change wheels for a lower offset, so push the wheel out further, so I've got tie rod end clearance, as well as I'm gonna have to extend the control arm out, so that way, extend, I mean, the whole stance out on both sides, so that way I've got clearance for the tire on the frame rail, because as soon as the suspension compresses, that's gonna hit. So, I mean, but that's not even max. There's clearance there. So that's not even all of the angle that you can get. I mean, just look at this. This is insane. That is like almost 90 degrees. That's just so wild. Like, holy crap. So, yeah, I'm gonna be running with angle limiters, and it's still gonna be more than enough. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the next video is going to be me reviewing this angle kit. I'm gonna talk about what it drives like. You know, a lot of people ask me, or are concerned about this not driving like a Corolla anymore, because Corollas have a very specific feel, a very exciting driving experience. And what they're worried about, what I'm also worried about, is that it's going to be almost boring to drive, because it's going to be easier to drive because you got all this angle. You know, there's a reason why I don't drive an S chassis or a 350Z or an E36 or any other BMW. It's because I love the way an 8.6 drives. So that's the only concern that I think I have, is that this angle kit won't feel like I'm driving a Corolla anymore. So next weekend, October 23rd and 24th, I'm going to be at Rockingham Speedway with MB Drift, testing out this kit, kind of dialing some things in, figuring out what Ackerman I like to run, figuring out how much toe out I like to run, and finding that sweet spot with how much angle I can really run. So, yeah. Like, comment, subscribe. Share this video with all your friends. Share it with all your 8.6 buddies. And have them make fun of me because I'm putting a ton of angle on an 8.6 for no reason, apparently.